Hello, everyone, and welcome to MBA 590, week 5. Okay. So, the big news is that just a few minutes ago, I posted the conceptual assignment. This is actually a little early, and that's on purpose because I realized if I didn't post it today, then I wouldn't have a chance to chat with you about it until actually the day before it was due. So I posted it today. It's up and live. You can start taking a look at it. It builds on several of the readings and the videos that you've seen, and so hopefully you'll get a chance. The way it works is there is an assignment, or sorry, there's a reading that is basically just to set the groundwork about how the luxury goods industry is changing in response to digital media. And then there is a series of 5 questions that you can answer about that I want you to answer about those readings, right? And that reading. So let's take a quick look. I can actually pull it over, right? Yeah, let me pull it up this way. Okay, yep, 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 yeah. Okay, good. Just want to make sure I have the right documents up before I switch over to them. So same PDFs you'll be seeing when you go to download the assignments. Right. But there we go. Okay. So here is what it's going to look like. Let me pull this over to the middle of the screen and turn off my capture. So essentially, it's worth 150 points, right? Which is what we originally talked about in the class, if you remember quickly. So just to go back and refresh your memory. Let's pull that up real quick. So yeah, so the way I do the grading in this class, right, is that each of the individual assignments is worth 15% of your grade. I do times 10 just to make it easier for grading and everything like that. So it'll be worth 150 points, which is worth 15% of your grade, just to remind you about that. Okay, so now it is due February 15th, again, by 11:55 p.m. The basic idea is that you're going to read about how the luxury goods and fashion industry is changing, particularly with respect to its advertising strategy. You will then respond to a series of statements and questions about digital strategy for both publishers and advertisers. So the article talks both about the magazine companies like Condé Nast, for instance, who are struggling because they don't get as many print ads anymore, but how they're dealing with that. And it also talks about how the luxury companies. So I kind of like that because the article talks about both sides of it, right? And your answer should be based on material discussed in the class, but you can support your analysis with additional materials you find on the web. Please limit your answers to no more than half a page per question. But again, I think I've mentioned this before, but I want to make sure I'm getting the best half a page that you can write, not the first half a page that you come up with, right? So really make sure it is well written. Don't just stop writing as soon as you come to half a page, right? Go back and edit. This isn't, you have over a week. You have almost 8.5 days to answer this one, so you got some time to do it. So the questions are as following. Using what we've discussed in class about designing a digital marketing strategy, analyze how the fashion magazine industry, example given Condé Nast, right, and all there, and the company talks about Vogue, for instance, and Anna Wintour and various people, right, how their revenue streams and competition have changed as a result of the growth of digital content. So, look in the article. The article talks a lot about how the fashion magazine industry is changing. Think about that, right? Think about the loss of the print ads, right? What does that mean? And how they're exploring new solutions in that space, right? And think about it also. Feel free to expand beyond just what's in the article to think about how the fashion magazine industry is changing. And this question, I'm focusing specifically on the magazines, right? The next question is, this article mentions several examples of how the fashion industry is taking advantage of own, paid, and earned social media, like we talked about, or digital content in general, not just social content. And I want you to give one example of each. So there are specific examples in the article that I want you to kind of pull up and describe what that content looks like and what that content is. Right? The next question is, there's a lot of discussion in this about earned media value, right? And this is very similar to some of the discussion that we had on social ROI in last week's reading, right? So how would you translate what is being said in this article about earned media value into the language of social ROI as described by Hoffman and Fodor, right? So I'm basically asking you to interpret, though there's about 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs on that in the reading. I want you to interpret that in the lens of social ROI, right? It also is mentioned, this is very simple, this is actually close to where earned media value is discussed, right? That Gucci has had runaway success as a result of its social media strategy. What I want you to, and it's talking specifically about runaway success in terms of sales. So the question I have is, how is this possible? And I want you to explain in detail the process by which engaging with customers on social media has resulted in sales. Now, in this class, we often talk about it, customer engagement on social media does not necessarily directly result in a sale, right? But there are ways in which obviously engagement on social media eventually results in a sale. I want you to describe that process, right? So that if, the reason why I ask this question is that if you're out there and you're running a social media marketing campaign and your boss comes to you and says, why are you spending money on this? I want you to be able to explain to them why it's a good thing to spend money on. Okay? Finally, I want you to take one of the brands in the example, say Gucci or LVMH, which is Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, and imagine that you are in charge of a new social media influencer campaign for this brand, right? And there's several examples of social media influencer campaigns described in our reading, right? Identify a single SMART objective for this campaign, right? And you can go back over and look at what SMART stands for, but I want to make sure that you have a specific, specific, measurable, attainable or assignable, realistic, and timely objective, right? And identify at least one KPI or key performance indicator that you will use to monitor whether or not this objective has been achieved. And finally, justify this objective as to why it's important for the brand. Part of the reason why I put this question in here is you're going to have to do this for the group project, and you're going to have to identify 3 SMART objectives. So I figure I'd give you some experience doing one, okay? So those are the questions. If you look over the reading, it's very short. It's only about 2 pages, but I think it kind of sets the scenario really well for what we're doing, right? And that's it for the conceptual assignment. Hopefully it all makes sense. If you have any questions, please email to them. Again, the assignment is due next Thursday at 11:55 p.m. So that'll be great. Okay, onwards and upwards. The other thing I want to mention, right, is that the project introduction and team contract are due by tomorrow at 11:55 p.m. Right? So get those in. I'm not looking for a long treatise on why the company needs digital marketing here. We're talking like 1 to 2 pages at most, right? And just make sure that you describe what the company is, kind of why it could use digital marketing, right? And go from there, okay? So that's it with respect to that assignment. And the team contract, I want you to fill out to the best of your ability. And to the best of to the satisfaction of the other team members. That's the most important part. Like, I am having you turn this into me so that I am kind of a neutral arbiter of this contract, right? But it's set up by whatever standards you and your teammates agree to. Okay. So that's it in respect to the 2 assignments, right? And if you look over at the Moodle, right, for this week, right, you'll see that there's obviously those turn in the team project introduction, team contract, and then complete the individual conceptual assignment are the 2 most important things. There's also 5 new videos out for this week on analytics and optimization. Some of those might be useful for you when doing the conceptual assignment, so you might want to quickly take a look at some of those. And the other thing you might want to take a look at, I'll leave it at that. That's actually it there. And so there's also there's a new video up for week 4, by the way, in case you haven't seen it. I posted on Monday, so it was a little late, but not too bad, on social media monitoring tools. There's nothing critical about it for the conceptual assignment, so skip over it if you need to at this point and come back to it later. The reason why I put it up there is because there's been a lot of questions in the past about like what are the best practices for monitoring Twitter and Facebook and things like that. And so I talk about at least two of the tools that are good entry-level tools, right, and how to use them. And in week 5, the last video is actually a quick introduction to the Google Analytics Academy. In the Google Analytics Academy, it's funny, I actually literally just had a student in my class who was in my class last year come into my office yesterday, right, to talk about the fact that, you know, a lot of the calls for marketing positions that she's seeing out there are asking for some digital marketing capability, and specifically a lot of them are asking for a Google Analytics certificate, right, so they show you can track Google Analytics. So I have a video up in week 5 on Google Analytics, and it talks about the Google Analytics Academy. I'll be getting in a couple of weeks here to an actual demonstrating the Google Analytics platform itself, but I wanted to show you where the Academy was, because even if I demonstrate the Google Analytics platform for you this year, it's going to be slightly different next year, right? And so going through the Academy and educating yourself on a regular basis is a great way to kind of have that knowledge there rather than just relying upon what I'm doing here. My goal here is to teach you kind of the overall digital strategy components, and these additional tools and resources are places where you can find out the nitty-gritty about the details, right? Because obviously, you know, what digital marketing changes so frequently that you have to have a strategic view on it rather than having a tactical. But, you know, obviously I want you to know the tactics as well. So theory and practice, that's the goal of this class. Hopefully you're getting it, okay? Because I have all that posted already, right, I was able to release the first 6 videos for week 6. There will be a 7th video on I believe it's on Google AdWords. I have to double check my notes, but yeah, looking ahead, I believe that one is going to be on Google AdWords, right? And the Google Ad Academy is what it'll be on specifically, right? So that's actually another tool to get certification, to do continual education about Google search advertising, right? So next week we'll be talking a lot about search in general. We'll not only be talking about search advertising, we'll also be talking about search engine optimization. So there's this distinction between search engine marketing and search advertising. So that's the content that's up, available for you already online. Look for a new video sometime early next week, right, on for week 6. And I'll continue to try and pump this content out there. I'm trying to make as many of the videos available. Obviously, there's some synchronous components in the class, like the group project and the individual assignments. But I'm going to try and get the videos out there as much as possible so you can kind of go through them at your own leisurely pace. But just quick reminder for the conceptual assignment, you know, essentially I expect there's nothing in the conceptual assignment that doesn't that uses any material past week 5. You may not even need week 5, right? Week 1 through 4 may be enough, because at least I mentioned SMART objectives and KPIs and stuff like that before. But week 5 will definitely help, because there's some discussion about analytics and optimization in week 5, right? So take a look, and hopefully it all makes sense. If you have any questions, let me know on those assignments. Okay. I want to quickly just double check to make sure I'm not missing any questions. Oh, by the way, I don't know how many of you saw, but you know, I'll have some slides up about the follower factory post, right? But actually, interestingly enough, for those of you who didn't see, there's been some follow-up to that. Apparently, Twitter went through and banned millions of users who were being artificially generated, right? And so those users are no longer even present on Twitter, right? So that's kind of interesting. So apparently the New York Times still has some power in this world, right? It was able to decrease the Twitter count of some users. It also turns out that a couple of individuals who had inflated Twitter accounts, like there's apparently a famous movie critic in New York, and etc., have been put on leave, at least, from their jobs while that's investigated, right? Because it seems like they were faking the numbers, the amount of influence that they had. Anyway, so that was a quick story that came up as a result of the readings. think that's all I have in terms of, yeah, that's all I have in terms of questions that have come up recently. If there are any more questions or concerns about the assignment, about the group project, anything like that, please let me know, and I will let me know. Oh, there was, I do remember there was one other thing I wanted to mention before, up until February 3rd or so, right? I apologize. Apparently, the team contract due date was set incorrectly. I have now fixed that. It was the system defaults to setting things at midnight, which is actually like right at the beginning of the day, which is kind of silly to me. So I changed the team contract deadline so it's the same date as the others. But just in case you thought for some reason the team, same date as the project introduction and the same time. Just in case you thought that the contract was incorrect, it was for a little while, but it has been fixed. So both the project introduction and the team contract due February 8th at 11:55 p.m. Eastern Time. Right? So let's see. I think I'm just double checking to see if there are any other comments that were made on any of the forums that I missed, but it looks like I got them all. So it was just that one last one. Okay. So I think that's all for today. Sorry again for being a little late, but I wanted to make sure I had that conceptual assignment up and posted and ready to go before there was any concerns about it, and so I could go over it with you right here. Let me know if anything comes up, if some part of the assignment doesn't make sense, anything along those lines. I am bringing a grader on board this week, so hopefully we'll be able to turn these things around in less than a week too. It can be a little touchy, so this first one you may have to give me a little bit of extra time because I may not have the new grader up to speed completely yet, but hopefully I'll try to get it done in a week, and if not, it'll definitely be done in 2 weeks at the latest for this conceptual assignment. Okay. Yeah. I think that's it for today. Good luck, everyone, with the assignment. I think it's kind of a cool little take on what we've learned so far, and hopefully interesting for you. Sounds good. Take care, and I will talk to you next week when at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, week 6.